Hey everyone, and welcome to Get Your Geek On's Marvel Cinematic Universe Retrospective. I'm Robert.
Zarin.
That's Aaron, and we're here to talk movie by movie through the MCU.
Yep.
So the Infinity Saga, 23 movies across 11 years. We are on movie number 3.
Yeah, and it's this guy right here, actually.
Yeah.
I didn't plan that. I just looked back.
It just worked.
It did. So this is actually going to be, first of all, expect spoilers as we get into each movie, but we will start off each video letting you know whether we consider this an essential part of the overall arc for the MCU right now. Think of this, though, as your guide into the MCU. So if you haven't watched any of the movies for whatever reason, the last 10 years, we'll give you a good place to start.
Listen to the first few minutes of this, find out if it's essential, and then, choose from there.
Yeah.
If you're like me, you'll probably think every movie's essential. You're a completionist. But there's definitely a few filler movies that maybe, especially when you look at the overall arc of the Infinity Saga, aren't necessary. Is this one of them? We're going to talk about it. So, yes, we are here to talk about 2010's Iron Man 2. It brings back the team that guided the first Iron Man to a rousing success. Jon Favreau back as the director. Robert Downey Jr. back as Tony Stark and Iron Man. Also back, Gwyneth Paltrow and Samuel L. Jackson. We got a new sidekick in Don Cheadle. Our first recast of the MCU, replacing Terrence Howard. And then, of course, new villains in Mickey Rourke, as well as Sam Rockwell. And Scarlett Johansson makes her first appearance as Black Widow. The movie becomes another major box office success. It earned even more than the first one, $128 million opening weekend, and over $620 million during its initial run. So, Aaron, tell the viewers, when it comes to the Infinity Saga, do you need to watch Iron Man 2?
I want to say it's essential.
Yeah.
But after watching it the second playthrough, it really wasn't.
No. I would agree. It's not really essential. You get some character development, mostly the relationship between Pepper and Tony. That's really the only major character arcs that you see in this movie. It does, of course, lay a lot of groundwork for how the world views Tony Stark / Iron Man, how the government views him.
How S.H.I.E.L.D. even views him.
We introduce S.H.I.E.L.D. as a much larger entity. And also, some of those characters like Scarlett Johansson, Black Widow, Samuel L. Jackson, Nick Fury, getting major roles that are really setting up the Avengers. But nothing that happens in this movie matters to the overall Infinity arc. Is this movie essential?
No.
It's not.
So sad.
You can skip this one. So if you're looking at, the first 3 movies of the MCU, watch Iron Man. You have to watch that one. You don't really have to watch these next 2.
No, and I recommend skipping it, honestly. Out of all of them, I really actually recommend just skip it.
Coming in 2010, right? This came out in May. So we've already had our big success with the first Iron Man. The Incredible Hulk also successful, although not quite the same. So now, it's been a couple years since we've had a Marvel movie. Everyone is super excited for Iron Man to be back in the theaters. Iron Man 2, we got the same director, we got the same actor. Everybody's hyped for it. How are you feeling?
Back then I was excited.
Yeah.
I remember, so happy because we had just come off of Iron Man 1, the Avengers Initiative. They've hinted towards it. Like you said, we kept the same cast. The only one, of course, not coming back was Terrence Howard.
We'll talk about it.
But I was happy. I was kind of sad at that point. I won't lie, because I liked Terrence Howard back then.
Yeah.
But overall, I was excited. I really was.
Yeah, I actually, as you will find with a lot of the things that we talk about in this movie, it is unmemorable. And I don't remember. I'm sure I was excited because I loved the first Iron Man. But I don't remember how I felt going into this movie because I don't really remember anything about this movie because it's just not great.
The only thing I remember, and again, coming from my comic book background, reading all these comics for the last, 20 years of my life, I remember seeing the trailer that got me into it, the suitcase.
Yes, the suitcase armor.
Yes, which is actually in the comic books.
Yes, it is.
So that when I saw that, I was like, oh my gosh, they're actually throwing something so old in the comics. They modernized it. I was so excited. That's what made me happy. I was like, yes, something from 40 years ago, 50 years ago.
The trailers for this movie are awesome.
Yes, they really are.
They did a great job of cutting together trailers and making people want to go see it, and they did to the tune of $128 million. And I remember walking out of this movie I have vague memories of disappointment while also still being excited for what they were building, and thinking, hey, you know, now we've got Black Widow.
Yeah.
We've already got Iron Man. At this point, they had announced that they were making a Captain America movie and a Thor movie. Obviously, we see that in the end credits. We see the hammer of Thor.
Spoiler.
So, you know, it's pretty. I was still excited for what was coming, but I wasn't excited walking out of this movie going, "That was such a great movie."
The only thing I remember after the movie was over was literally the last scene, the end credit scene.
Yep.
And the fight scene, because I thought that was a really good CGI work.
So let's just talk through the movie itself.
Okay.
Right. So obviously, as we get into this movie, it starts off with, you know, we get introduced to our villain.
Yes.
Who
Whiplash.
wants revenge on the Stark family, on Tony Stark, for his father, who used to work with Howard Stark, and was deported basically, and accused of, you know, being a spy. And so he wants revenge on him. So he's, you know, now that Tony Stark is Iron Man, using the arc reactor technology, he's going to break out the old design from his father and build his own arc reactor and you know, use it to fight Tony with. We get, you know, Tony. We learn early on that he's dying. The suit that is keeping him alive is also killing him. And so he's making a lot of reckless decisions for reasons that I don't think are ever well explained.
No.
And we get him also being very defiant in front of the government that I am Iron Man, you cannot have my technology, you cannot take it from me, and you know, this is my property, and you can't have it. But I gave you world peace. Good job. So that's where the movie kicks off. We get the confrontation. We get different things that go back and forth, obviously. And nobody really learns any lessons in this movie.
No. I mean, and you also got in this one, and the only reason I'm going to mention is because he actually pops up randomly later on, Justin Hammer.
I love Justin Hammer in this movie.
He's so terrible, but he's so funny at the same time.
We're going to talk about Sam Rockwell's performance. I guarantee it. But
he was another villain brought out though for the movie, and unfortunately later on now, just real quick, he's never really used after this.
I hope they bring him back.
I do too.
And I think that it's certainly possible that he will, especially now that, spoiler alert, Iron Man is dead in the MCU. I think that opens the door for Justin Hammer to make a return. So we'll see what happens. But, you know, this movie, at least for me, if you look at it, no real character arcs.
No.
Tony Stark is the same guy at the beginning of the movie as he is at the end of the movie. Nobody else has any major character arcs. You know, we see Pepper Potts get a new job. She becomes the CEO. Well, that continues after this movie. But her character doesn't change. She's always been the powerful woman that's running everything behind the scenes. So no character development from her. No character development. All of the villains are one-dimensional. You know, even Black Widow's character is introduced really poorly. If you were to ask me, I don't think this is a good introduction of that character.
Since you're married, you can't say this. The only thing good about that introduction was the spread of her.
She's very attractive.
That was all it was for me. Like,
sure.
I remember that scene very well. I was like, oh yeah, she was like sitting there. Looks nice. But you're right. She was actually pretty one-dimensional. It was, I'm a spy and I'm a badass, and that's all you need to know. And it was like, even the scene later on in the movie where Tony interacts with him, he's like, wow, you're good. It felt fake. It felt forced. That whole thing.
So this is what I'll say, is that every moment that Robert Downey Jr. is on screen, the movie is watchable.
Yes.
Sometimes 100%. It's great. Sometimes, he's still Tony Stark and Iron Man, and sometimes it's really good. That opening scene where he's in front of the crowd and kind of riffing with them, that's a really fun scene. The Senate hearing scene, I think is a really fun scene.
That was good.
Every other time he's on screen, again, it's at least watchable. Anytime he's not on screen, I find myself bored by this movie.
I will agree with you. The only other times I didn't mind it is when Justin Hammer's character comes out. Yeah. And then because he's still kind of witty, he's still kind of a smart ass, and he wants to be this slick billionaire playboy guy, and he's not.
I love Sam Rockwell is playing fantastically the guy that wants to be Tony Stark
Yeah.
and is trying too hard, and everyone knows it except him.
Exactly.
Everyone is watching it and knows that this is a
Yeah.
guy, he's not what he thinks he is, and he's trying too hard, but he's oblivious to it. He thinks he's... And there's actually that great moment at the end of the movie where he's introducing his panel, and he kind of tries to make this joke, like, you know, he's doing the press is gonna run out of ink, and you can see he's got the smirk on his face, like, I just told this great joke, and nobody cares.
No one at all.
It's really kind of I think his character does a really great job. So yeah, those two actors do a great job.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the new actor, Don Cheadle.
Don Cheadle. Yeah.
So the way they introduce him, I actually think is really clever.
Yeah.
You know, where they're coming into the Senate hearing and he goes, "Oh, didn't expect to see you here. It's me. Let's move on with it and just move."
Yeah.
You know, they address it without addressing it.
Yes.
Which is kind of an interesting way to go it. So this is what I will say. I prefer Terrence Howard in the role of James Rhodes.
Okay.
This portrayal by Don Cheadle is actually my favorite of his portrayals
Of Don Cheadle's portrayal. Okay.
of James Rhodes. I think as the movies go on, I like his character less and less, whether it be in Iron Man 3, in Avengers Age of Ultron, in Civil War, in Infinity War, Endgame.
Yeah.
I don't find myself connecting to Don Cheadle's portrayal of James Rhodes. In this movie, I actually kind of like it. I still don't like it as much as I like Terrence Howard.
Yeah.
But this is my favorite Don Cheadle as James Rhodes performance.
I'll give you that. I mean, me going in there, I knew Terrence Howard wasn't coming back.
Yep.
And at the time, this was 10 years ago now.
Mm-hmm.
I liked Terrence Howard. I liked his acting. I thought
agree.
he was a good actor.
Yeah.
I didn't know much on Don Cheadle except a couple little things that he had done, which I was like, okay, they're all right. I got why they changed it.
Sure. Well, I mean, there was contract disputes. So
Contract issues, yeah.
Terrence Howard was the first actor that signed on to Iron Man.
Right.
And so he signed on at a certain dollar amount.
Yes.
And he was locked in for more movies at that same amount.
Yeah.
And after the first movie was a huge hit, Robert Downey Jr. was able to renegotiate his contract and earn a lot more money. And Terrence Howard wanted more money. And Marvel said, no, you're going to take the amount we paid you for. And so there's a big dispute, and eventually Marvel said, you know what, we'll just make it without you.
Exactly.
And I don't know. I don't know anything about the contract. I don't know anything about Terrence Howard.
No.
Maybe he regrets it, seeing the success that the movies have had.
Exactly.
I don't know how many movies he was locked in for, and so maybe that character wouldn't have had the same arc
Exactly. That's true.
If he had stuck around. Who knows?
You don't.
But definitely, I think from a pure acting standpoint, I think Terrence Howard is a better fit for that character of James Rhodes. That doesn't mean that I think he's a better actor than Don Cheadle. I think Don Cheadle's very talented, just like Terrence Howard is. But I think for that role, Terrence Howard is a better fit.
Don Cheadle isn't... For me, when you go on there with Robert Downey Jr., and you're Tony Stark, you have a presence. When you come on that scene and you come in that room, that presence takes over.
Yeah.
And as Rhodey, you're supposed to be the best friend, but for me, Rhodey always had to have just under that presence. He would be the next one if it was just him and Tony. If Tony left, his presence had to take over.
Yeah.
And for Terrence Howard, he was that person.
I agree.
I dominate this room now that Tony's gone. But when Tony comes in, okay, he's first, but when he walks away, I'm number one.
Right.
With Don Cheadle and Tony would leave the room. Why are you still in the room, man?
He never feels like an alpha.
No.
And I think they're both alphas. Obviously, Tony is the primary alpha.
Yeah.
But I think they are both alphas, so I'll agree
in their
with you
own
there.
way, yeah.
And it's, of course, it's that little meta moment that's actually in the first Iron Man movie where, at the end of the movie, Terrence Howard looks over at the Iron Man armor and says, next time, baby. And,
I love it.
And watching that, you're going, not for you.
Yeah, when I watched it the second time, I was like,
aw.
I forgot you're not going to get that suit,
Poor
man.
Terrence Howard, not for you.
Nope.
So... Just let's talk about the visuals of this movie.
Okay.
Because you did talk a little bit about that fight scene at the end. I think not only did the fight scene in Monaco not make any sense.
No.
It doesn't make any sense that Tony would be able to drive a race car. It doesn't make any sense that Happy would be able to drive on the racetrack going the other way. Like,
not hit anything.
Nothing in that scene makes sense. The suitcase armor's badass.
That's the only thing good.
And, that initial fight scene isn't bad. Anything else stand out to you from the fight scenes?
So from that first one at the racetrack,
Mm-hmm.
tell me how many times you can get hit by a car and actually live and not take spinal
It
damage.
depends on if you're Tony Stark or Whiplash.
Yeah.
If you are, then it's 6 times.
You counted it or not?
No, it's just
I was curious because I didn't count it.
I just know it's at least 3 times because I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure Mickey Rourke, who we haven't mentioned, and I don't like his performance at all. I think he's
I hated
terrible.
Playing a Russian accent too. No.
Yeah, oof. And so he gets hit at least 3 times.
To me, that scene, that part was the worst. And I get it. You should take yourself out. This is a movie. There's nothing real about a movie.
They try and set these in the real world. So I'm going to throw shade at him.
If you're going to, throw the shade then.
Yep.
He got hit waist down by a car going at least, say, 20, 30 miles an hour.
He's fine.
Mickey just coughs up a little blood. I'm good. Then gets hit repeatedly, and at one point gets hit hard enough the airbag deploys.
Yep.
So that means it's over 30 miles per hour at one point. So wait a minute. I'm fine though. My spine's good. My legs still work.
Good.
I didn't even take a broken
Well,
bone.
the fence, was a lot of give behind him. So, he was able to.
I'm good. I mean, I'm fine. I'm gonna shake this off, guys.
And then I'll fight Iron Man.
I'll fight in about a week. I'll be back.
Yeah.
Perfect health.
Well, no, he fights him after he gets hit by the car.
Oh yeah, he's still fighting.
They
That's
still
right.
have to fight there. Yeah.
Because in the suitcase armor. So that scene upset me for that.
Yeah.
The other scene I hated was the actual last fight scene. I don't know how you felt with that.
It's a bad
one.
fight scene. I think that there's a lot in this movie that they're clearly relying on the actor charm.
They really
to carry you through. There's a lot of quips. There's a lot of moments. And so, that fight scene, not great. I'm going to tell you right now, after that Monaco scene, I was bored for this. That whole... And it's like they crammed the demon in a bottle storyline into like 20 minutes. Yeah. And I was bored out of my mind while he was at his birthday party, being drunk. That was a hard scene to watch. It was just... And so that's... And all of that, it's uneven. There's no real character development. There's no arc. That's why this movie is my least favorite of the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe, at least on memory, and certainly so far in our retrospective. I'll see if maybe there's any other movies that hit the lows of this movie, but this, at least in my memory, is my least favorite Marvel Cinematic Universe.
So far, out of the 3 we've watched, this is going to be my least favorite.
Clearly.
And I'm kind of with you right now. I don't remember the other movies as well, but this is so far my least favorite. And again, the first fight scene in Monaco was terrible.
Yep.
This last one, the only good thing, and you don't find this out till 8-9 years later, the little boy is Spider-Man, which was a stupid little attachment.
Yeah, you don't need that.
You don't. And here's my thing. You have Rhodey, who is a military. He's a lieutenant colonel, I believe, at this point, right?
Yeah,
I
something
think,
like
or
that.
colonel.
Doesn't matter.
So he's a
it matters to
somebody, I'm sure. But in Air Force, he's either the second highest or except general. He gets into. He's seen combat, obviously.
Yeah.
So he knows what to do. And I did like the little part where they're flying around. He's trying to tell Tony, "I'm out in your 6." This. I kind of wanted to say at that point, as Tony, well, no crud, you're at my 6. Where else would you be? Like, seriously, I don't need to know where you're at. I need to know where these other ones are going. Like, stop telling me you're behind me shooting me. I know.
Yeah, well.
So that bothered me a little bit, and it felt like they were just trying to fill in some gap right there.
Sure.
And then they land in this, I'm going to say dome, I guess.
Yeah, it's like a garden dome thing, yeah.
And it's very portrayed in the very first moment. They say sorry to each other. We have a few seconds, obviously, to talk before the villain shows up, as always. Of course. And it's very much like, okay, man, this is the kill box. This is where we go to die. One of us needs to get up there. Okay, I'm the big gun.
Yeah, they have a little banter around it, and then everybody shows up, and they're stuck in the kill box.
In the kill box, with no threat. They killed all those robots. Like nothing.
Yeah,
there was no reason to worry.
It was very quick, and even the fight with Whiplash at the end
was quick too.
It was done in a minute and a half. Yeah. Like I was surprised at how quick this movie ended.
It was, and that's what bothers me, because you play about a couple minutes, a few scenes of we're gonna die if we stay here. Oh wait, I forgot, we have 100 guns on us, and you have this really cool weapon that literally killed everything in one blow.
Which we never see again.
No, well, he makes the one comment, I can only do it once.
No, I'm not talking about in this movie. I'm talking about in any movie.
Maybe it was again. Maybe it was a one time ever.
You see it.
Oh, do you see it again?
When he's cutting the He's cutting.
No, that's a different. It's a different. That's not the same thing, Frank.
It
Off
was
screen.
one laser. That's all it was.
I
He
thought it
only
was 'cause
built
he, like,
one.
pops
ever.
out of his
No,
wrist.
it's different.
Period.
It's
So
different.
that bothered me because again, I want to see if we're not going to get character development, at least see him struggle in these fights.
Yeah.
Every fight was very much.
Well,
We got this.
And again, from a production standpoint, this movie was actually rushed into development. It was kind of like
Yes.
those. They made those first two movies almost at the same time. I mean, they came out a month apart.
Yeah.
So they made those movies together, and I think they were certainly hoping that they would turn into the successes that they would, but they didn't know for sure
Yeah.
that they were going to be able to make a sequel to Iron Man. If the first Iron Man movie
True.
hadn't been successful, they wouldn't have made this movie.
Yeah.
And so they rushed this and they said, "Oh man, look." And so everybody talks nowadays like, "Oh, DC rushed to Batman v Superman and DC rushed Marvel rushed these movies too." They took their time and they gave each of their major characters a solo movie
Which
before
was
the
smart.
Avengers.
Yeah.
But they rushed this movie as
This-
well, and
I felt it.
and it feels that way. It feels sloppy. It feels uneven. And overall, as much as Robert Downey Jr. is fantastic,
Yes.
it's not enough to save the movie.
It really isn't. And I know we talk about scenes, and one scene I do want to talk about, and I want to see where you felt with it.
Okay.
The last scene where we finally see him sit down, we see the Avengers Initiative folder.
Yep.
Was that scene even worth it to you? Because we never hear about this again, and even in Avengers, they comment he shouldn't have been an Avenger, but he's an Avenger anyway.
Well,
it never gets referenced again.
Yeah, I think, again, he gets brought in as the consultant.
Mhm.
And I think, I think you kind of always get the feeling that Nick Fury thinks that he will grow into becoming someone that can be an Avenger.
Okay.
So,
Was that scene worth it then?
is the scene necessary
Yeah.
and worth it? No.
So you could cut that off and whatever.
I think this
think-
movie needs it. I think
Okay.
that scene is good for this movie. I think if that scene wasn't in this movie, I would like it even less.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean the scenes. You don't need it for the
I
the
feel like
Infinity
you don't need
Saga.
anything else.
Um,
The only thing that was good for, and like again, there was no character development, so he's still a prick. He's still a jerk, and he
right.
even
He reads. I love the little thing where he's reading the different, the assessment of him, and it's
Yeah.
the textbook narcissism.
Yeah.
Agreed. And he
it's
just
very
agrees
much
to it.
that. And he's like,
Yes.
"Oh, you can't afford me, but wait, if you let me do this one favor, I'll work for you for free." And they get the senator
Yep.
from the beginning of the movie. They finally close that loop, and he pins a medal on him,
Yeah.
and he stabs him with the pin.
And that senator
And that's
later is revealed as Hydra.
Yes,
That
he
happens
is.
in Captain America.
Is it
No,
Civil War?
it's Winter Soldier.
That's right.
Is
Winter
where
Soldier.
is where we learn that he is Hydra.
And that's
So
where
it's a kind of an interesting. That's a character that returns.
yes.
So I think one of the big things as we move into kind of the overall arc. So we
Yes.
talked about how this movie is not essential to
No,
the Infinity Saga.
not
But
at
there are a couple nuggets where we go, that kind of fleshes some things out.
Yes.
One of the things that I think is interesting, and really probably the only interesting thing,
Yeah.
is that this is returning to a time pre-Avengers
Yes.
where although Tony feels personal responsibility, he hasn't yet felt the weight of his actions
No.
in terms of consequences. At the end of this movie, there's
He's
been a
still
lot of
good.
destruction. There's been a lot of, explosions around New York. You assume some of those people died. Obviously,
Oh, yeah.
he saves Pepper.
Pepper
but
and Future Spider-Man.
some other people had to have died in those explosions.
Oh yeah.
And he doesn't seem to feel any of those consequences. He doesn't seem
No.
to care. Early in the movie, when he's battling with, the government about his suit, he's basically saying, this is my thing, and I'll protect you, and don't worry
Yeah.
about it. So it's interesting to return to this time before the Avengers, where he really doesn't feel that weight of the consequences that really, really hits home in something like Civil War,
Yes.
where he's actually now flipped and he thinks government oversight is necessary, which is a complete 180 for his
Yeah.
character.
And I agree with you on that. And again, this is why we feel this movie's not essential. It doesn't go anywhere. He
Yeah.
didn't develop at all. At the very beginning of the movie, he's a jerk. At the very end, he made a deal so he could get one last little jab at the senator.
Right.
You didn't change. You're still
No.
you. You're still narcissistic. You're
Yep.
still Tony Stark. And watching it again, and now knowing the 10 rings are around, I noticed Justin Hammer had a ring on his pinky the whole time, and it was a gold ring. And essentially, in the first Iron Man, what's his face had the black ring on his pinky.
Right? Yep.
So that I didn't know if there was supposed to be some type of connection or not.
Could be.
Because I noticed quite a few scenes he has a gold ring on his pinky. And I'm like, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And there are scenes where it's not on. I think when he gets on stage, he doesn't have it on. But like I noticed when he's at like the fancier dinners and stuff, he has it on.
Yeah.
So like, maybe it was just a prop. Maybe it was more. And
kind of cool.
We'll find out in a few, a year, 2 years from that.
Yeah,
movie comes out?
a couple years. Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. We'll see. But as we talk again about the Infinity Saga, so we're 3 movies in to the Infinity Saga. Still have yet to see an Infinity Stone.
Nope. Nothing to mention.
And will we see one in the next movie, Thor? We will, maybe. We'll talk about it. So certainly when we talk about this movie, it mostly just sets up the Avengers.
Yes.
It's not an essential movie.
No.
No Infinity Stones.
Nope.
They resolve any issues. In this movie, he's gonna die. And they resolve that very quickly.
Yeah.
This is the first movie where we actually see, we didn't mention earlier, John Slattery as Howard Stark.
Yes.
And so he shows up in some archival footage.
That was nice. I forgot about those.
Yeah, and
nice.
I like that character. I think that's, I like his portrayal of that character. We're going to see a different actor play that character as well in an upcoming review. But certainly I think John Slattery does a very good job with the role. Mm-hmm. And so again, when we talk about Iron Man 2, it's not essential.
Nope.
It's not great. It's my least favorite MCU movie. And so out of 10, I'm going to go first this time.
Okay.
I would give it a 5.2.
Oh, you went higher.
It's just over that 5. Here's the thing. It's still a superhero movie. I love superhero movies. There's still great moments with Robert Downey Jr. in this movie. The action scenes aren't great, but the suitcase armor moment is really cool.
It's a nice nostalgia piece.
And I like the way War Machine looks in this movie. I think he looks really cool. The way that he acts, as the character, maybe not, but the actual look of the character is really cool. So again, overall for the movie, it's weak. It's not great, but overall out of 10, just over that 50% mark. I can still watch it. I'll fast forward through a little bit that middle section. If I ever watch it again, I'm not going to watch the birthday scene. I think that's a terrible scene.
Yeah.
But overall, it's still it's got its moments.
Yeah. I actually went a lot lower. Well, not a lot lower, but lower. I went to a 4.7.
All right.
I really the acting holds it a little bit with
We're not
Robert
that far
Downey.
off. We're a half point away.
Yeah. The acting's there.
Yeah.
But the scenes that were bad for me were just too bad. The fight scenes were terrible.
Yep.
Like you said, the birthday scene was pointless.
Anything with Mickey Rourke is bad.
The whole thing was terrible.
only scenes that he's in that are okay are the ones with Sam Rockwell as Justin Hammer, and they're only because of Sam Rockwell as Justin Hammer.
And that's it. The villain. I forgot Mickey Rourke was even in this movie, honestly.
Oh, God.
And I was kind of happy I did. And then, again, there was another scene. Again, the fight scenes I didn't like, and I keep stressing how much I hate it. If you know anything about me, I love action scenes. I love choreography. I love all that stuff. I didn't think they needed the joke at the end where he launches the ex-wife missile and it just dulled out. I didn't think that would needed to be in there.
That was such a bad joke in that movie.
That stuff like that is what makes me hate this movie. Like that didn't need to be there.
He hates it.
I do. I'm getting. The more I watched it, the more I talk about it, I'm like, I just don't like this film.
Aaron's I'm never watching it again.
I probably won't.
How dare you force me to watch this movie?
I mean, it was so enjoyable.
I'm feeling the hate.
I was so happy going in, and then I was like, oh yeah, Mickey Rourke's in this.
Well, it was really funny because actually...
this is all his idea, by the way, guys.
It is. So Kristen watched Iron Man with me.
Oh, cool.
A few weeks ago when we did that one.
Yeah.
And when it finished, she's like, oh, I can't wait to watch Iron Man 2. And I was just silent going... I think you can. I think she literally fell asleep within the first 5 minutes of trying to watch this one. So she was out.
I was almost out during this one, as I was busy during the day, and I almost passed out watching this because I was like,
I'll be perfectly honest. When it got to that scene that after Monaco, I pulled my phone out. I stopped watching the movie for 15 minutes. It still was on in the background, but I was so bored. Yeah. It's just not a good movie at that point.
That's why I say not worth it. But it's like I said, we've said not essential, guys. Skip this one. You can technically skip the Hulk. Watch that first Iron Man, though. It was a good one.
For sure. Next up is Thor. Drop it down in the comments. Let us know. Are we crazy? Is this movie better than we're saying it is? maybe it's even worse than we're saying it is, and you think this is a terrible movie. So again, let us know in the comments. Like, comment, subscribe. Thor coming next. So for Get Your Geek On, I'm Robert.
And Aaron.
And stay geeky, guys.